So Bob, I hear you talking, but I can't, I mean, I see you talking, but I can't hear.
Okay, we're recording, and I've been talking away. Uh, this is another session of our annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment. Uh, we have with us Cassidy Law. Her session is Digital Wellbeing, striving to model a balance of our technology usage, and that is always a challenge for many of us. Cassie's the manager of collaboration and classroom technology services and gets to play with a lot of interesting technology. So, Cassidy, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks so much, Bob. Welcome everyone, and thanks for attending. And hopefully we can keep this as active as possible. I'll use the chat to ask you some questions as we go along so that you can kind of keep me informed on what you know about digital well-being. So I created this presentation a while back actually, and was asked to redo it for this conference. And it's just something that I've been very, very interested in over the years. I used to be the director of the Docheo Center for Innovation and Learning here on campus, and just last year transferred over to the manager of collaboration and classroom technology services. But obviously still a very important thing in my life, digital well-being, because yes, we are surrounded by technology all the time, and we need to find a balance with that. There is a link to the presentation that you can get to. So if you want to keep it, you want to do whatever you want with it, copy stuff from it, whatever, it's out there and free for you. And I did put it in the chat channel. I will put it in there a second time too for anybody that joined a little bit after. Okay. And I'll go ahead and get started here. Let's see if I can advance my slides. Time here. I just need to pull my chat over a little bit. There we go. So digital well-being, when you think about possible definitions, if you click on that link, you will find that there are dozens and dozens of different definitions out there for digital well-being. So coming up with one that works for you is a good way to go. The one that works for me is finding a balance between the positive and negative ways in which technology impacts my life. Okay, that's how I think about it, but I think it's a little bit personalized too. So if you click on that possible definitions, you will see 34 different possibilities out there. I'm sure there are even more than that now. Okay, that's the last time I checked. One of the things you need to keep in mind when we talk about digital well-being, though, is we're not just talking about how it affects you psychologically. So we're also talking about the physical and emotional effects and how those are impacts on your well-being come to play. So I always start this out with which tools do you consider negative? And, you know, these tools, you can see the little icons all over the screen. I'm sure you have your own. So I want you to use the chat and I want you to like type in that tool that you just is a time sucker for you, right? It just takes you away from your everyday life in ways that you don't want it to. It's something that maybe even you have to utilize, but you don't like to utilize. I know for, you know, sometimes in our IT group, there are people here that are like, oh, I wish I didn't have to use Microsoft Teams, right? So what is that tool for you that just is your time suck, right? The thing that you're going to give too much time away to, the thing that maybe annoys you. Yes, Twitter is one of mine. I don't tweet, period. But yeah, you can see these all getting typed into the chat. So I thank you so much for participating in that. TikTok, interesting one. Yeah, that can be fun, but definite time suck, right? So whether or not that's a negative thing is questionable though, right? Just because it sucks your time, sometimes that might be beneficial if you need some downtime or whatever, but other times that might be a very negative thing. Yeah, getting rid of all your social media. Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, it does. It does have this, social media can have a real negative impact on you. It can also have a positive impact, right? If you're just using it to like keep up with family who lives on the other side of the country or something like that. But yeah, I totally agree. So I want you to think about those things, those negative things, the things that, you just wish maybe weren't easily at your fingertips all the time. But then on the flip side, what are the things you consider positive? So I want you to do the same thing in the chat. Add something in that, like, I wouldn't give us up this app if you tried to force me to, kind of things, right? And for me, those tend to be the ones that keep me really active. I like apps like All Trails, where I can, get access to hiking trails anywhere I go and have that activity in my life, So what apps do you see really, really beneficial? Which ones do you use frequently? Strava is another one for me that I kind of like to be able to track stuff, and I do use that. Another one for me, I have an Amazon Halo, which is a little tracking band, like activity watch. And my Halo app is probably one of the apps I use most frequently. I consider those things positive because they are adding to this piece of my life where that is inspiring me in some way to be more active, or it's inspiring me to take time for myself, like the Calm app, for instance. So I see those as positive, right? So when we're looking for this, yeah, Zoom is a must. Thank you. Yeah, Zoom is a must, right? Especially my group here at the University of Idaho, we are the administrators of Zoom, actually. So sometimes I get a little too much Zoom because I also have to handle the administrative side, but it's all good.
I don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah. The Apple Watch activity tracker, nice. Apple Music, yeah. Spotify's perfect. I love Spotify. That's one of my personal favorites when it comes to music. So you can just think about that. And I know we have the little drama coming with Spotify right now, so it's interesting to see what happens with that. So thank you so much for contributing those ideas. So now what controls do we have, right? Because you would think that we've got some way to balance how we utilize technology and what we do with it.
Where's your paperclip box that I got you?
Right here.
Okay, Bob, I think we have a live mic going on here.
Whoa, lady. It is at its maximum. I know. And I'm forever grateful.
Okay, we'll see if he's out there to handle that. So what controls do you have is the question. When it comes to digital well-being, we all have tools built in to our existing technology.
Now, is the show cause date going to be okay with you guys? It's February the 15th.
Nikki, mute your mic.
One space.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Okay. I don't have the control to mute mics. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for taking care of that for me. Okay, so digital well-being, we have these built into our personal devices, right? These types of tools that we can utilize to kind of control our own use of technologies. On an Android phone, that's going to be called digital well-being. That's the actual name of it. And if you don't already have it in your phone, any newer phones typically just come with it. And you can get a little caption of what it looks like down there. But the other flip side is if you're an iPhone user, it's something called screen time. Okay. And I'm sure all of you are familiar that these tools exist. That doesn't, however, mean that you utilize them. Okay. Mine are set up so that I have everything locked down during the day. So if I want to access like social media or something like that, and it's the middle of the workday, it is blacked out for me. That doesn't mean I can't turn it on and like cheat for 5 minutes, but it does help to control things, okay? You can also completely black things out. You can put your phone on sleep, that kind of thing, so that at certain times of the evening, it turns to a black and white screen and is very unpleasant to use, by the way, when it gets to be a black and white screen. So yeah, there are definitely tools and controls that you can set on your devices. So digital well-being and parental controls on the Android side, there's a dashboard. You can set timers for all your apps. So if you want to say social media, I only ever want to use a social media app for 15 minutes. You could go through and set timers for all of those, right? And that would limit you to 15 minutes a day. There is something called wind down, and that's that thing in the evening that it will go into sort of a black and white mode. Focus mode, I set my hours between, I believe, 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's when my apps, those ones that our time sucks for me, are sort of locked down, okay? And so you can see the list of different possibilities there. The same thing exists on the screen time side, the iPhone side. They're just called something a little bit different, okay? So on the iPhone, it is called downtime. There's app limits, there's communication limits. There's things that you could do that are always allowed, and then there are content and privacy restrictions available, okay? So definitely we want to start there. However, I think one of the biggest things, especially when you work in technology as well, is just stopping your notifications. And the way that notifications are set up is that every individual app will almost always give you every notification alert possible unless you go in and turn it off. Okay, and so I have to go in and make sure I stop notifications on, Outlook and Teams and Gmail and social media and all of those specific things in order for them to not come up on my phone or on any of my other devices. Okay, so I'm better about that on my phone than I am on my work PC, for instance, because at work I need some of those notifications, but I'm never going to get like any of the social media ones or anything like that, because I never utilize that stuff at work. Okay, I only use the things that obviously I need to keep track of, which is like Microsoft Teams. When something pops up in there, I'm responsible to responding right away. Okay, so notifications, I think, is one of the places that we can go and really start to lock things down. Also, keep in mind, if you're a YouTuber, you can actually do a time watched profile on there, and you can track how much time you've sucked away on YouTube. That's fun to do to your kid, by the way, if you have a kid that's a YouTube watcher. My kid used to be, and it was fun for me to look at that, his watch time. Chrome extensions, just in the chat, is there a Chrome extension that you love and can't do without? I think Chrome extensions for me are a real positive, and these are things that I see keeping me on track and helping me to respect my time. So as some examples, this is called a Mercury Reader. I don't know if you've ever seen Mercury Reader, but it removes all of the distractions from an article that you might be reading. And all you do is you click on the app in the upper right corner, and it'll take the article in whatever website you're on, and it will just give you the text. and you're only dealing with the text. Great for K-12 kids, by the way, because they get really, really distracted with all those other things going on a screen. So that is one I use frequently. I have a student that I showed it to last semester here at the university, and he messaged me this semester and let me know that it's one of his favorite things in the world. So it's kind of a good find, right? Okay, so I see annotate, somebody put in there. I use AdBlock Plus. And of course, all it does is it kind of runs in the background all the time, and it will block all of the advertisements on YouTube. If you use YouTube to teach, that can be a really great thing. Occasionally, it will block something that you need, and you have to go in there and turn it off for a minute to do that. But most of the time it works sort of seamlessly. Calendly, yes. There are a lot of people that use Calendly. I get requests all the time to turn on the go-between between Calendly and Zoom. So we get a lot of people on campus that use that and want to utilize it with Zoom. This is another one. This is called Reading Roller. Reading Roller, just very, very simple. It allows you to track where you're reading in an article. Saves me a ton of time because people stop by my office or call or whatever, and I have to jump off and deal with something. But if I have that line that I'm on highlighted, I can just go right back to that thing. So it makes life so much easier. This is Google Keep. So if you are a Google user, I use Keep for all of my personal notes. I tend to use OneNote at the university for all of my work notes, but both of them kind of keep me on track. And then there are actually two apps here at the bottom, or Chrome extensions, sorry, that you can use in the same way, where you're locking down what you have access to during the day, just like with the Digital Wellbeing app on your Android or the Screen Time app on your iPhone. So Stay Focused is one of those, and this Productivity Out is the other one. And so those are two that I would recommend if you want to like lock down your PC from giving you access to those things during the day. Okay, you Stay Focused. Yeah, there's so many of them out there. So many good ones. And I really like, I feel like they definitely up my productivity when I utilize them. So let's jump into FOMO and JOMO. So can anybody tell me what FOMO and JOMO are? Or one or the other? And if you're in the presentation, you can actually click and cheat. But yes, fear of missing out. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so this FOMO thing actually came around before the whole concept of digital well-being, but this idea that we fear missing out from things, especially when it comes to engaging in technology. So maybe that has to do with social media, you know, and you feel like you have to get in there every day and see what people are up to and give your, you know, stats and all that kind of stuff. But what they found in the research of FOMO is that it can have a very, very negative impact on people, that idea that they have this fear of missing out on those kinds of things. The flip side of that is the joy of missing out and learning that if you have a chance to walk away from all of your technologies at some point during the day, or maybe at some point during the week, or just for a weekend away kind of thing, that can be an absolute joy. That, you know, not having that constant distraction in your life. I have a friend who recently went to one of the what are they called? The floating poles, and you float in this pole, and it's all of the distractions are removed. It's a dark room. You're in there by yourself, and it just allows you to like sort of have a blank slate and a blank mind. There's no noise. There's no nothing. And so that I think would probably help with that idea of the joy of missing out. So if you think of it as fear and joy of missing out and how much that impacts your life, it can be very interesting to think of that in terms of digital well-being. Okay, I know myself, I used to live off the grid. I lived off the grid when I lived in Pennsylvania for 9 years. And so when I left, yes, thank you, Jason. Sensory deprivation is what I was trying to think of. When I lived off the grid, I actually was a technology coach at a school district, but when I got home from work, I got to completely disconnect because nothing worked at my house. There was no electricity. There was no way to plug in. Yeah, I could, charge things at work, but I didn't have any internet or anything like that at home. So it was kind of great to just have that built into my life. When I moved here, things definitely got interesting because that's not the same way. And I had to come up with other ways to get away from technology and have that joy of missing out. So that's something to think about. The other thing I try to think of is what are the technologies that I could invest in that might help me be more productive, that might help me balance the scales a little bit more and make things a little more positive for me. And these aren't technologies in themselves. These are two things that I definitely utilize all the time, and they're at my desk right now. So I use a fluid stance board, which I've been kind of hovering on this whole time. I tend to be a very active person and I move around a lot while I work, but it helps me to concentrate. If I don't use the board, then my mind's just all off somewhere and I get distracted very easily. Okay, another thing I use, and you can see it here in the bottom right, it's also by Fluid Stance. It's just a little note board. So when I'm on Zoom or when I'm doing something and I have to take a little note, I just write it on there and then I wipe it off when I'm done with that little task. And it's just one of those things that I sort of can't do without now, right? I've just become so used to it. There are other things out there that are specifically for digital well-being or well-being in general, and they kind of help you with that balance idea. So this is definitely not technology. It's really simple. It's just a necklace with what looks like a whistle on it, but it's not a whistle. This is by Camuso Designs, and it actually, you're supposed to breathe into this, okay? And you can see I have one at my desk at work. And if I ever just sort of need a break, I use my little breathing necklace and it just helps calm me down. I just find that it's kind of relaxing. So that's one of those things that's non-tech that you can look into. That's a little tool out there that's kind of fun. This was actually one of my favorite things. I didn't buy one of these for myself, but I bought one of these when I worked at the Docheo Center, and I used it for a month because I always would test out the technologies that I got over there. And so it's called Core, and it's this little round device that you hold in your hands, and you meditate with it, and it will actually do this sort of, it sort of vibrates and gives you these different breathing exercises, whatever, and it comes with all of these guided meditations on the app that you can utilize. And I found it really valuable, and it did help me focus a lot easier in trying to meditate, because meditation can be a very difficult thing, especially without the idea of sensory deprivation. Let me see here, what else do we have? And I have one of these called an Active 5. Okay, and this actually, I don't know if you can see it, here we go. It's a little tiny device that you hold in your hand, and it helps with workouts. You use it for workouts, and you kind of like squeeze it between your hands, or you squeeze it between an arm and a leg, and different exercises that are built into it that you can use it for. And it's all about training your muscles. Okay, so it's a kind of cool little device that's out there. And then a lot of you may have heard of this one. This is called the Upright, right? When we use technology a lot, especially we worry about our posture. And so there's actually a little well-being technology out there called the Upright, and you can see that you can use adhesive and put it on in between your shoulder blades, but it also comes, you could buy a little necklace for it, and it just sort of hangs behind between your shoulder blades, and it will give you alerts as to when you're leaning over too far, when your posture is poor, and it really does help to improve posture. So those are some of the technologies that I think, there is this whole market of health and wellness technologies out there that really do help some of those things. But finding out which ones are a good investment versus a poor investment, like I'm going to buy this thing, but I'm never going to use it type of thing. There's always a balance to that, right? So those are just some ideas that I have. I think another thing to keep in mind about digital well-being is that it is becoming a term that people are familiar with, right? And it is a huge concern, especially among the K-12 population now, right? And so it does appear in the ISTE standards, so keep that in mind. And it appears differently for each set of ISTE standards. And I can say that it is most straightforward for technology coaches that the word digital well-being or digital citizenship actually appears in those standards, but it's also in there subtly for education leaders, for educators themselves, and for students. The idea of having this balance of how you utilize technology. So here's a fun little exercise. I don't know if you've ever seen this site. If you have, let me know in the chat, but this is Google's digital well-being. Okay, so if you've never gone out to Google's digital well-being site, you definitely want to check it out. It gives you some videos that talk about digital well-being in general, but then it also gives you this idea of thinking about your own digital well-being. Okay, so if you go out to that page and you click Start the Experience, it will walk you through a series of questions where it asks you to kind of think about how you're utilizing technology, and then to rate those things between this is something that I never do, or this is something that I often do. Okay, so if you go through the tech, and I'm just going to click on answers here just to get you through what the questions look like. I tend to lose track of my time when I'm on my phone. I don't know anybody that doesn't do that. Okay. And then you can go to the next one and the next one. And by the way, I have these at the bottom of the page. I think I listed all the questions that it asks you out. Oh, that is the wrong one. I am sorry. Yeah, so, oh, here it is. So I tend to lose track of time when I'm on my phone is the first one. Then it asks you, I feel the need to check my phone right away if it vibrates or makes a sound. I get distracted by my phone when I'm with friends or family. I spend more time on social media than I'd like. I'll stay on my phone instead of going to sleep when I intend to. I feel like I'm missing something important at work if I don't check my phone. If I have a question, I reach for my phone for an immediate answer, right? So somebody that like always goes to Google and looks something up right away, or I feel overwhelmed by the amount of unread emails that I have. And so it walks you through those series of questions. And then after the fact, it gives you tools and ideas for how to deal with those, the way that it rates you, right? So it's kind of a neat website and a neat concept, but also keep in mind that it's not just Google that is doing this, right? Every tech company now is coming up with some way to get people to understand that there can be this whole negative aspect to utilizing technology as well, okay? And the idea of digital well-being and finding that balance. So after you do start the experience, it will give you, ideas of what you can do, like focusing your time with technology, unplugging more often, minimizing distractions. And there's even a section on finding balance as a family, right? Like no screen time at the dinner table types of things and that kind of thing. So it kind of walks you through step by step. I appreciate that one, but there's so many of them out there. So if I go down below here, you'll see that besides just digital well-being on its own, Google also has a digital well-being experiments place. So if you want to look into their collection, you can click there and go out to it. And these are things that different makers are coming up with to try out that where they're experimenting with how they might be able to add something to this realm of digital well-being ideas. Okay, and so you can see the ones that they are working on out there right now. There are also digital safety resources. So there's a thing called Be Internet Awesome. If you've never heard of it, if you have a K-12 kid, maybe they've heard of it, because we have a lot of teachers in the K-12 classroom that use it with students. And it's a whole program about digital citizenship, but it has a large focus on digital well-being as well. There is a place out there called Building Healthy Digital Habits, okay, which is a website and gives you a bunch of resources to work from. This is one for little kids especially, Brain Pop, but Brain Pop is a tool that kids tend to utilize, some of them through school, some of them at home, and it has a whole digital citizenship curriculum on it, as does Common Sense Media. So I know a lot of you have probably heard of Common Sense Media, but if you go out to the Common Sense Media website, there's a ton of information on digital well-being and tools and resources that you can utilize, and a whole classroom set for K-12 that's based on digital citizenship. There's the Digital Citizenship Institute, which offers a course in digital citizenship that is free. Has anybody ever heard of Everfi? Everfi is a popular platform, especially in the K-12 world, but I've seen people use it in higher ed for some introductory physics kind of stuff. And Everfi has a digital literacy course within it. And again, all of its tools are free. And then there's something called Digital Wellbeing Educators. So there's a toolkit out there available through that. So when I started actually getting into this whole concept of digital well-being and how do we balance and what kinds of ideas do we come up with, I actually reached out to people and sort of started asking them some questions about it. And so these are the list of questions that I actually went through. And, you know, this became more and more relevant whenever we entered the phase of the pandemic, because all of a sudden we were all on Zoom all of the time and people were getting so sick of Zoom. But I think what we found out in the long run is that we've learned to manage the way that we work in a different style in a lot of ways. And so do any of you now still follow protocols where you're working either from home or out of the office more frequently because you got used to doing that when the pandemic first hit? And it was just such an unknown territory. Are there a lot of you who still utilize those methods and work in that way? You know, some of us have that flexibility. So, and it has a lot to do with your workplace and what they allow you to do, of course. But if you think of it, so from the University of Idaho perspective, we still have a lot of faculty who prefer not to be on campus for a lot of things, and they'll do a lot of their work from home. They can do, you know, most of their meetings online and things like that. We do have people that still, you know, are concerned about the pandemic and request to be able to teach online versus being face-to-face. However, as a campus, we are back face-to-face full time, right? So the majority of us are here face-to-face, but, you know, think about different people in different work environments, and do they need to be here face-to-face? And so within OIT, which is our university information technology infrastructure, we have several groups that can opt to work from home, you know, and maybe it's a balance of they're allowed to work from home 3 days a week, but they have to be on campus the other 2 days, that kind of thing. My group, Classroom Technology Services, we actually have to go out to the classroom and fix things physically. So we really need to be here in person. However, you know, as people get sick, and we've had people in my office that, you know, have had COVID and needed to take a couple weeks off, those things, people can opt to work from home if they just, yeah, I'm sick, but I'm functional and I want to work, those types of things. So I think we've all learned this flexibility that we probably would have never had in a lot of our jobs prior to this situation. And hopefully that is one of the positive things that we will move forward with out of this time. But, thinking of how you utilize your time and what you do with it and what sort of lessons learned you've come up with in your own life related to your own digital well-being, I think are really, really important. So these questions that I have on the screen now are just to kind of think about things that, what kinds of things, or how possibly do you tend to unplug beyond school hours or work hours? And I was asking this specifically to teachers at the time, but it works for both school or work. Does technology that you use impact your sleep, your routines, your sense of self? Right. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me to get used to, is the idea that my phone needed to get out of my hand and go away from me in the evening by a certain time in order for it to not impact my sleep. And so I tend to not look at my phone or pick it up past 8 p.m. But there's a lot of people that, that's their biggest problem, is just the idea that the phone is next to them and they're on it right before they try to go to sleep, and they're on it as soon as they wake up, right? And so finding that one little nugget for yourself and working on that one thing that you think will make a big difference in your life, I think is the way to go with all of this digital well-being thing. Yeah, I see here, Heather said, do not disturb after 8 p.m. and the blue light filter has made a huge impact for me. Yes, the blue light filter. Okay, so little things like that. Is there anything else that anybody wants to share that is their little nugget of truth in all of it, right? Like, what have you found for yourself that just is a game changer in terms of trying to balance how you're utilizing technology for yourself? Yeah, that huge thing for me was the 8 p.m. thing as well. And also not picking up my phone the first thing in the morning. I used to be that person that I am up at 5, right? And I would be answering emails at 5 o'clock in the morning. And my students would expect it. They knew I would answer them anytime. And that just, walking away from that and being like, now I don't touch my phone until I get to work, unless it's for something personal, right? Once I am at work, which starts at 8 a.m. the regular year, or 7:30 a.m. in the summer, then I start checking my phone as soon as I arrive on campus. But prior to that, I turn it off. Turning off the sound notifications for everything is definitely a key for me. I don't like to have those, especially if I'm in a meeting or something like that. It really embarrasses me if my phone goes off while that happens. Yeah, you could feel your shoulders relax. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I think that's huge, so something that simple, turning off those notifications. It's not going to ever beep and tell me something. Or, if you have that one important phone call that you're waiting for, you can always go back in and turn it on for a short time. But, for the most part, having those turned off. Yeah, no notifications on your smartwatch. Excellent. My husband has a watch that was giving him notifications constantly, and it was driving me crazy because he'd be sitting there and his watch would be buzzing, and I'm like, what? And what is going on? And he said, well, I don't know how to turn them off, right? So I had to go into his Garmin app and go through everything and disconnect him so that he was no longer getting all of these notifications on his watch. Yeah, turning off sound notifications in Teams was a game changer for me. Yes, those are incredibly annoying. I do have them turned off on my personal devices because when I'm working on my PC at work, they will pop up anyway, so I can see them, and that visual thing is enough for me. I don't need the noise. But if I log into the PC in the conference room, they're auto set in there to alert, and it does drive me crazy. So that is a great example. So I think, the lesson in all of this is finding the thing that works for you. Digital well-being is very, very personal, because where I can say, I can't stand Twitter and I don't want to spend any of my time on it, I find it useless. There's probably 10 people on this call that have a very different opinion on that one piece of digital activity. So I think we all look at these tools very individually, very differently, and we all find tools that really very much work for us. And I think it's trying to lock down the ones that we know have a negative impact on us, so that we're only using those when we have to, or using them limitedly, versus trying to find tools that we know will have this positive impact. And maybe you already found some of those tools, but actually, getting ideas from different people, and what kinds of tools do they find that have this positive impact. It's just kind of a whole new world to explore. And I think it's really, really important, especially right now, that everybody kind of learn to have this grasp on their own use of technology and how to sort of control that. I've been working, I don't know how many of you have kids, but I've been working with my teenager on ideas surrounding that, right? Because I do worry about how much time he doesn't game or anything like that, so he doesn't spend a lot of time on technology like that, but he recently started his own business, and so he does spend an awful lot of time utilizing his PC in his room, working on his website for hours and hours and hours at a time, working on, promotional materials, stuff like that. And it's great that he's that engaged, but I also get worried about the fact that, does he know how to walk away from it, right? Does he know how to sort of relieve that and give some of it up and, go do something fun for a little bit type of stuff. So I think it's something that we all need, and we all need to think about. And so I thought I would open it up for questions and see if there's any thoughts or anything that anybody wants to share or ask me about my experiences with this, and how I try to, put a message out there to the university regarding it. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, you can turn on your mic and ask me. You're also welcome to throw it in chat if you want to. And I thank you so much for joining me. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, I think I'll turn off the chat too, so it doesn't bother me.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, I know. If we could just occasionally do that, right? Oh, okay. So there's a question. Does your university have any limits on how many tech changes can happen in a year? That's a really good question. So we do have blackout dates, is one thing that we do, where we can't make any changes so many weeks prior to the beginning of a semester and so many weeks prior or after it starts, right? So we have like these blackout times, because nobody needs those changes in those windows when they're under a lot of stress anyway. Beyond that, we just try to be really, really mindful. So for instance, my group, navigating Zoom and administrating Zoom, we recently went to the type of Zoom where you have to have one of the security settings in place, and that's a requirement now. And so that was the only Zoom change that we made this semester, because we knew it was going to be a huge impact on people. And we notified notified them of it, weeks before it was going to occur. So it actually went into place right after the last semester ended, when you're in that like in between flux of, the holidays. And that way the faculty the staff that were still on campus were able to get used to it, and all of our IT folks were able to get used to it. And then when faculty came back, they knew that this was a new expectation, that they had to be using one of those security settings. So we do try to do stuff like that. So there are the blackout dates, and then we limit within a certain group how we push things out so that it's not too overwhelming. Any other questions? All right, well, I'll go ahead and close up then. So I wish you all a way to find the joy of missing out.
Yeah.
To not worry so much about the fear of missing out when it comes to your digital well-being, so that you can find some balance for yourself. And I thank you again for joining me today. If you need access to the presentation, once again, there's a bit.ly link right here, bit.ly/digitalwellbeing21, that will get you the presentation. And thanks.
Thanks, Cassidy. I know I get in the habit. I get a zillion emails every day, and there are times like I have to read those 200 emails, and it's weighing on me. And then I try to remind myself, probably 3/4 of them don't matter to anybody, and
Yeah.
I delete them. But it's hard sometimes to do that because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something,
Great. Yeah. And so like setting aside certain times where you allow yourself to check email, and other times that like, I have to focus on this thing. I'm not allowed to look at my email.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this. Hopefully you've improved our lives to some degree.
I'm not going to count on it, but hopefully I gave a little nugget of some idea that might help.
Well, I hope to see folks tomorrow morning for our second day. Everybody have a good evening.